All right, so welcome into whatever we want to call this. This is a live stream for myself to discuss the Louisville basketball coaching position, the coaching search, and I may have misled some folks here in regards to what I'm about to do. I just wanted to use this live streaming platform to, I guess, give more context to my thoughts and opinions on the candidates, mostly Dusty May, because I think at times you lose the ability to truly convey what you want to convey when you're just using, tweets. But for those thinking I'm about to drop some big breaking news that gives us some massive update in the coaching search, I don't that's not what I'm going to do. But I will tell you at least what I know and what I believe. And I am someone that I think anybody who's sharing information, especially locally, I think they get it from legitimate people who they trust, who they know would have access to information that most people would not. But I still think, like, at the root of this, there's not many people at all that really know exactly what's going on. So with that said, I guess we'll start with Scott Drew. So he is a unicorn type candidate because I've always felt like it was going to be very difficult to get him to leave Baylor because of what he has, because of um, you know, he's a made man there. And when I say he's a unicorn, it's because he is a national championship caliber coach that may leave because he's at Baylor. Doesn't mean that he's looking to leave, because he's in a great spot. But there's not a guy with a similar resume, with similar credentials that would be in any way realistic, in my opinion. So has he told them no? I know there's some. I mean, do we even need to call them reports? I mean, there's tweets out there from people claiming what they're hearing that say he's told them no, he's informed Louisville that he's not going to come. And maybe that's true. But, I believe that, he probably hasn't told them directly, no, not happening. Best of luck to you. Maybe he did. But I mean, if in fact he has no interest, I think he'd be a fool not to leverage this position at some point. And maybe he does. Maybe he is getting a new contract and it's going to be announced before they play on Friday. I don't know. But, I've always believed that going after Scott Drew made sense. I think anybody that knows anything about how this works would know Louisville was going to have to offer a lot of money. Like, you'd have to come correct, right? You can't just, you got to pay him a salary that makes him one of the highest paid coaches in college basketball. So I think Louisville is prepared to do that, but it doesn't mean he would leave, because I think at the end of the day, it would just be very difficult for him to walk away from what is a great situation. So I don't believe he's told him no for sure, but I've always believed that it was much more likely that he would stay at Baylor rather than leave Baylor and come to Louisville. But hey, if in fact I'm wrong and he ends up wanting to come here, I mean, I don't know how you could view that as anything other than a major success for Louisville and an A plus, really, for Josh Hurd in real time, right? You don't know how any of this is going to work out until you get a couple of seasons in and really see what the results are. So I don't think he's going to be Louisville's next head coach, but we'll see. And I don't even really know what I don't even know what we would need to know for sure it's not happening. I think it would probably be Baylor announcing some kind of extension for him. So I think in the last couple of weeks, it's just turned into who's next. If in fact Scott Drew does tell you no, and you got to move on to the next guy on your list, who is that? And I know Dusty May is believed to be that guy. I have no reason to believe that is not the truth, right? That makes sense. What I said yesterday, that I still believe, but I think it led to people assuming that I hate Dusty May, think he'd be the worst coach ever. I mean, I don't think that. I mean, I get why somebody would hire him, but I think going from Drew, a guy that you're not when you're talking to Scott Drew, you're not interviewing him. You're selling him, you as the boss. You're selling him Louisville and telling him all the things you can do for him that would make it enticing and almost make it to where he'd have no choice but to leave, right? He has the job if he wants it. He knows that. We know that before there's a conversation. With Dusty May, it's different. You're talking to him. You know his resume, but you're getting a feel for him, right? He's pitching himself to you more than the other way around. which is not that uncommon. So maybe there are some qualities within these two guys, Scott Drew and Dusty May, that are similar. Likability, um, I don't really know what else I would throw out there because, both have been successful to an extent, but let's be honest here. Drew is a different world. And that's not Dusty May's fault. It's just the reality of it. So for me, if you're initially set on going out there and paying a bunch of money, making it clear you'll hire a guy and make him one of the top paid guys in the sport, and he says no, to instantly go to a guy that is cheaper that you really don't need to sell Louisville. To me, that just seemed like a little inconsistent. But again, it could just be because it's not so much about the differences in resumes. It's more about the fact that you think that maybe Dusty May could be the next Scott Drew because of some similar qualities that they have as coaches and as people. So it's probably a small group, but they're loud. If you don't love Dusty May as much as they love him, and you bring up any questions about, could there be more of a risk involved? People will act as if you said you hated the guy. And I've never said that. Here's the reality. I'm going to support whoever they hire because what am I going to do? Not be a fan? I have no control over it. I have no say so. So whoever they hire, I'm going to know that it's a much better situation than the one we just ended. And I'm going to hope that it works. And everybody that's been mentioned for the job realistically, including Dusty May, I could see it working out. I could see it working out in a major way. But I'm also not, of the belief that anybody other than Dusty May, if Scott Drew says no, would be a big mistake. And I don't think I'm out of line or off base to say that. So again, Dusty May's Final Four matters. I don't want to act as if you shouldn't consider that because you should. It's silly, but it's how it works in college basketball. That matters so much. So, I'm not discrediting him, but after the Final Four, when you look at what else is next on the list to throw out there as far as what makes him the guy, people mention something that is true. And it's that FAU was god-awful before he got there. And now, they're not. They won a lot of games last year, made a Final Four. And were there some breaks along the way? Yeah, but really any Final Four run for anybody, I'm sure there's some breaks along the way that if one or two things didn't go the way they did, you wouldn't be there. So, but outside of the Final Four, FAU again, this year they went to a new conference, and they were a good team, but I wouldn't call them great. I think you could make the case that maybe they don't even belong in the tournament. But either way, that's beside the point. I'm fine with looking at him making FAU more competent and then turning them into where they're actually solid to good. And again, they had a freaking Final Four. But some people act as if before Dusty May arrived, you couldn't even televise FAU games and fans couldn't be in attendance because it was viewed as such a traumatic experience to have to watch what that was, FAU basketball before Dusty May. In fact, I think they let him play with 6 players instead of 5 because they were so bad. That's what they had to do. And I know I'm being a smartass right now, but what he did at FAU is impressive. But just to look at the numbers and act as if that's it, how do you not hire him? I mean, that I just don't get. So I'm not anti-Dusty May. They could hire you, whoever's listening and watching right now, because what am I going to do? Not be a fan? We need new life, new energy, a fresh start more than we ever have. And we're going to get that. And if it's any of the coaches that have legitimately been discussed that we believe are some way in contention, I could see it working out in a major way. It's just, mentioning other coaches outside of Dusty May, I don't think is crazy to do. Now, if he's the guy, wouldn't be shocked if we find out, heck, I'm live streaming right now. And I wouldn't be shocked if this ends and I pull up Twitter and I see that it's done, which not realistic because he plays in a game on Friday. But, I have no problem in mentioning Eric Musselman. I think he's a really good candidate that has proven he can win. He won at Nevada and he's won at Arkansas. They weren't good this year, clearly. And that was highly publicized how down they were and how, they were, one of the more disappointing teams maybe in the country based off of the expectation. But I'm not going to ignore what he did in his first few years at Arkansas when he was, phenomenal. Reminded people that, oh, yeah, Arkansas, that's a pretty good basketball school. They've had some success. They hadn't been to the second weekend in 25 years or something. Maybe not that long, but maybe 15 years or something. Big difference there in 25 and 15. So apologies if I did get that wrong. But they had no life in basketball. And then they've gone to 2 Elite Eights, a Sweet 16. He's killed it in the portal. I mean, Muss is the one guy that if you just don't like him, I guess it's because of his his fire on the sideline, or what some would call like whiny. And maybe you are turned off by, the fact that he takes his shirt off, which whatever, everybody has their own, preferences when it comes to that stuff. But I mean, given the lifeless bench we just had, Eric Musselman can do the Macarena at halftime with no shirt on if he wins here, and he shows energy and he shows life. I actually like people who are that passionate about it. So I don't really know what the red flags are from us, other than this year wasn't that good. Other than, and look, it's out there that he doesn't work well with other coaches. Like, he's not been able to keep a staff intact. I mean, I think it's been talked about a lot by college basketball insiders that he is not believed to be a great guy to work for as an assistant. I have no clue if that's true, but like, I wouldn't be surprised by that, because I don't think that kind of stuff gets out if there's not some level of truth to it. But either way, has it stopped him from winning at any point other than this year? I don't think it has. So here's what I'll tell you. I think he's alive in the search. Clearly, Dusty May has more momentum, it appears. Don't know if that's legit, but like, I wouldn't be shocked if it's Drew, Dusty May, and then like a distant next person. And I would say that person could be Eric Musselman. I think the longer the search goes on, I think the more alive he is. He wants the job. I mean, I feel comfortable in telling you that he wants the job. He's not leveraging for more money at Arkansas. I don't think it's a for sure thing he leaves there like it was a couple of months ago. But like, he would come to Louisville. He has a small buyout, and I think he fits that I guess that it checks that box that Josh Hurd mentioned, which was wanting somebody who would crawl here. So I like him, and I again, luckily for everybody involved, I'm not the one making the decision. I would hire Musselman over May. I would, because I just think there's been a longer track record of winning at a higher level program. Doesn't mean Dusty May wouldn't kill it here. I just see it as a little bit more of a risk, and I just think you want to take the smallest risk possible. And I say smallest because there's a risk with no matter who you hire. You never know how anybody's going to work. So, those are my thoughts on those three guys. Mick Cronin, I've never really understood why there's been at least some level of like desire for him here. He's not a bad coach at all. He's a good coach. I think he'd win here. I think he's done it long enough at two places to where, the breakthrough, the ceiling, I just don't see it as being that high. But you could do a lot worse than Mick Cronin. But Mick Cronin to me has always been a non-starter because of the money. And it's not my money, so why do I care? But let's also be real with ourselves. If you hired a coach and it was quite clear what you paid to get him, and results are mediocre, it's going to be a humongous talking point. Louisville paid for this, even though it's not our money. So where I got, completely confused on is this loophole in his contract, right? Does he have any wiggle room? And the two theories that were floated out there, one was that he has wiggle room because of NIL resources. I don't see a scenario where that could be possible, because coaches aren't even supposed to know NIL exists. They can have no involvement in it, right? I mean, we know they probably do. But like, what school's going to put in a contract that this coach is entitled to NIL money to pay play? It's just not realistic. So the one thing that I still thought was unrealistic, but people ran with it, and people who I believe would have information that I wouldn't have, claimed that there was potentially some wiggle room because of the Pac-12, the Pac-12 dissolving and UCLA leaving the Pac-12 to go to the Big Ten. So I still don't know if that would be in a contract, but here's what I feel comfortable in sharing. I think Mick Cronin, maybe his representation, believes they could fight this in court. Like he could leave and they could win a lawsuit because of those two things maybe mentioned, probably more the conference affiliation thing. But think about it this way. Are you going to take that risk and go to court? And if you lose, you're on the hook for $20 million. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. And no offense to Mick Cronin. I know people think I don't like him and want him to be here because I'm afraid people, would tell me that I look like him, which I don't believe that I do. But if you think I do, telling me that, you're insulting me. So, I'm a human. I don't like to be insulted. But either way, Cronin is a fine coach. I just have never really thought it made any kind of sense because of the monetary commitment it would take just to get him to be here. And, I believe one of the boxes that, is one of the most important that I hope gets checked by this hire is engaging with fans, making it clear you know what this program is, you know what it's capable of, how much you appreciate the fan support and tradition that is here that you couldn't buy with the unlimited amount of money. It's because it's something that's so important to people around here. I mean, you don't need to kiss our ass every day, but some level of really understanding why people love it the way they do because you know how special it is. At the end of the day, if somebody comes in here and they win at a high level, that stuff matters very little. In fact, it may not matter at all. But until you coach a game, I think that matters a lot because there's never been more of a need to inject life in this program, including the fan base. So, with all that said, I just don't think Mick checks those boxes because, I don't find him to be a particularly likable guy. And I don't think I'm alone in that thought. So after those four, two other coaches I want to mention. And that's not to say that there's not other coaches that could be hired here. I'm just, sharing my thoughts on it. And it's not that I'm breaking any kind of news. But what I did say about Cronin, I believe that's to be clear, I think U of L is now just realizing that wouldn't be worth the pursuit because of the risk assessment there, right? $20 million. So, I was told that by somebody who I believe. So again, the other two coaches I want to talk about, one is Jerome Tang. I don't know why Jerome Tang hasn't gotten a little more love. I think there's some fans that like Jerome Tang a lot. There's a lot to like. But the reason I've yet to get a sense that he's truly somebody they may potentially hire is just because he's still so new at being a head coach. And I get that. I love Jerome Tang. I would hire him. I would. I mean, I wouldn't hire him over Scott Drew, but I love Jerome Tang. I love everything about him. And I'm well aware that he is viewed as a big risk because he's only been a head coach for 2 years. So I get it. But there are some that are, sharing information that I believe they're getting from somewhere that he's got, baggage. He's, got a checkered past. He has skeletons in the closet. And I don't know Jerome Tang, never met him, but I feel very comfortable in sharing this. Anybody that knows Jerome Tang or works with him, has worked for him, it's starting to get out there that that's now being said about him in this search and maybe another search. I don't know. And they claim that it's the biggest lie ever. And I have no reason to believe these people aren't telling the truth. So, Scott Drew, he worked for Scott Drew, by the way, for a long time before he got an opportunity to be a head coach. So, and that's another thing. Again, I understand he's only coached 1 year that was successful. This year they didn't make the tournament. There's some reasons for that I don't think we need to get into because it'll just sound like I'm making excuses for the guy. But they lost their best player, the only returning key piece from last year's Elite Eight team, in October, I believe, before the season started. You couldn't go fill that void in the portal. And it changed the way they were going to have to play this year. And this year, again, they didn't make the tournament. It's not me claiming that they had a great year, but along the way, they picked up some big wins. And I think that, again, also speaks to what Tang can do. I get the risk. I get it. But I think he has so much upside. I think he would be a rock star here, and I think he'd win. But I understand why, the small sample size there makes it to where it's just harder to make a commitment to him and harder for fans to really want that to be the guy. I get it. But I can't prove anything. I'm not calling anybody a liar, but I think this noise about him having a checkered past and skeletons in the closet that will remove him from consideration, I don't believe that to be true at all. And the people I've talked to about that would know. So, I wish he was more in play here, but, doesn't look like he is. Maybe that changes. I don't know. Disclaimer, I should have thrown this out there more than I have throughout these 20 minutes I've been yapping. I don't know anything about anything, right? I do get information here and there, probably not as much as others. In fact, I'm sure not as much as others, but it's from people that I know would have more information than I would. And, I think there is some belief that Tang has, again, skeletons in the closet, but I'd be highly, highly shocked if there's any truth to that. But anyways, another name I want to mention, and I waited till last because it's probably not a big name that, heck, there may be people listening or watching right now that, that don't even they don't even know this name. And that's Pat Kelsey. Pat Kelsey is the coach at College of Charleston, was previously at Winthrop, and I think he's a really, really, really good coach. He's a different level candidate because he's clearly a mid-major, doesn't have a Final Four like Dusty May, but he's won everywhere he's been. He's been a head coach for a long time. I love the coaching tree that he comes from. I like Pat Kelsey. I'm not advocating that he should be the guy, but I do believe that there's been some level of communication with Pat Kelsey's folks, or maybe Pat Kelsey directly, and somebody within the U of L athletic department. I wouldn't call it a formal interview. I don't know what it was, but they've at least, I guess you could say, kicked the tires on that. And I think, that's wise to do. Now, again, when you would get to him, I don't know. I don't know if he's realistic at all, but I do think that he is somebody that at least has been on their radar enough to where they've, I guess the best way to describe it is they say kick the tires on the situation. And there may be way more people that they've done that on. I don't know for sure. So, other names that I want to throw out there, not because I think they're in consideration, but if you were willing to throw the amount of money you were going to throw at Scott Drew and he says no, and you wanted to continue to go get a guy you have to pay top dollar for because that's what you need. I love Bruce Pearl. I don't think Bruce Pearl is realistic. He would actually be more expensive than Scott Drew, even if you paid him a much smaller salary because he has a big buyout. So that's probably one to where even if they were interested, the finances don't make any sense. And Bruce Pearl leveraged Louisville's opening last time to get a new contract from Auburn, and I don't believe there was any level of, I'm sure there could have been interest, but way premature. I don't think Louisville had made any kind of contact with Bruce Pearl to see if he wanted to get the job, and therefore he pressured Auburn to give him a new deal. So I love Bruce Pearl. I'd pay a lot of money for him, but I don't think he's realistically in play, and, I get it. And there's other coaches that have gotten contract extensions since this whole thing started, right? Nate Oates, Doug, is it McDermott? Yeah, McDermott at Creighton. Even Chris Beard got a new deal. But I don't think Chris Beard was ever going to be considered at all. And one more coach I'll throw out there before I end this. Will Wade. Will Wade's a good coach. He has won every conference he's been in at every level. And, I think McNeese State's got a chance to, potentially pull off a big upset. So it's hard for me to say that he's not a good coach. I think he'd do well here. I just don't think Louisville would go hire a coach who currently has a show cause. And I'm not here to argue about or tell you that, that's a big mistake or that, they'll never regret it. I understand, why they wouldn't do that. If you're a fan and you're thinking, who gives a flying rat's ass about that? What he was, in trouble for doing is now what everybody does. I get your point. I'm not here to say, you could never hire him because, I understand why people would not be that bothered by either Chris Beard or Will Wade being in contention, because these are people who, I believe are absolutely, just able to see this. I'm not hiring anybody to be the best guy in the world. I want him to win. I get your position, but I also get the University of Louisville's position and caring about the optics and the brand at least a little bit. And unfortunately, things have happened, recently that really have very little to do with anybody that's currently involved that you still have to keep in mind. I think Josh Hurd kind of hinted at that when he talked last week after he fired Kenny Payne, as far as, the integrity factor within this coaching search. So anyways, overall, I believe everything that people are saying about Dusty May looking like the next guy. I do. But I don't know if it's a for sure done deal. Would shock me if it is. But I still think the longer the search goes on, that maybe there is a third candidate that is really in play here. And if I had to guess, I would say that's Eric Musselman. Again, I said guess. And then with Cronin, I just don't think they're going to pursue that because of the risk there. And then after that, man, it could be, the thought of it being somebody that none of us have talked about, I just don't think that could be possible. Could it? I don't know. All right. I hope that this actually, I'm looking back at what is in front of me on my laptop, and, the stream here. It looks like it is working. We've got a lot of people commenting that I'm just now seeing that I have not looked at. So before I end this for the next few minutes, I'll I'll read some of these comments that are coming in. All right, so this is from Tim, and no offense to Tim, I don't know if he's being sarcastic or not, but he said, "I heard Bob Huggins was on the way." Do people really believe that there was any scenario that Louisville would hire Bob Huggins to be the next coach here? I mean, think about how it ended, where he was. Think about how, how old he is. I mean, think about what Louisville's looking for in this next hire. I mean, to me, that makes no sense at all. And it's not realistic. But I think there was like this Facebook page that, Butt Crack Sports or something, that posted a Photoshop of Bob Huggins in a Louisville hoodie or something. And like, baffles me the amount of people that see that and just assume, well, it must be true because Butt Crack Sports reported it. No offense to Butt Crack Sports. Says, Nick, you're a clown who posts fake and edited photos. Fake photos of what? Oh no, you mean like the photoshops of coaches? Yeah, I have posted photoshops of coaches' heads on the bodies of guys coaching Louisville or whatnot. So, bummer for me to know that I didn't fool you and you knew those weren't real. You knew that the picture of Jerome Tang coaching Louisville on the sideline was not real. Thought I would really get over on you there. This says, is that a Kansas State hoodie? It's not. It's not, but I could see why you might say that. This is what do you think about Will Wade? I just explained that. This says, if an extension is coming, would have to think it's before the tourney starts for them. Has been a pattern for all extensions this year. Totally agree. Totally agree. It could look, it could happen tomorrow. It could happen today as far as an extension for Scott Drew. But if it doesn't, I mean, am I crazy to think that that means we're still alive here? I mean, maybe wishful thinking. Let's see. This is from Cecil, who says Scott Drew still hasn't said no. Totally agree. Matt says you need to look at Will Wade. Chauncey says, I don't care who the coach is at this point. We have to get the ball rolling. Yeah. And like, I don't want to act like, hire anybody. Who gives a damn? Because, you don't just want, I mean, no offense to Kenny. I'm not here to, go back to that nightmare. But no matter who they hire that is among the people discussed, we know it was going to be substantially better than what we had. But that's not what you're doing in this coaching search. You are looking to get the best guy long-term to where, maybe you go longer than a few years without needing a new head coach. Tyler says, if we end up with a Dusty May level coach, who I have a lot of optimism for, I feel like that is a sign that the blue blood programs have lost their edge with NIL facilities and history are now meaningless. I get it, but I don't know for sure that that I would look. If Scott Drew turns you down and you go to Dusty May, people can take the optics of that and do whatever they want with it, right? Like, I'm sure Kentucky fans would act, oh, that's the guy they went with. Wow, they've fallen. I'm so glad they hired him. Like, I get why they would say that. Doesn't mean it wouldn't be phenomenal. There's no guarantee. And I think with Dusty May, there's a little bit more of a risk than with some other candidates that I like. And also, I'm curious, like with Dusty May, are we going to have a level of patience involved that maybe we weren't expecting? Because Louisville should be a tournament team next year, no doubt about it, right? I mean, we held Kenny to that standard. Why would we not hold, this new coach to that standard? This says a bit hyperbolic. And here's what's, here, I'm new here as far as these live streams, meaning like, you sent that at 11:46. I have no clue what the hell I was yapping about at 11:46, but I'm going to guess the a bit hyperbolic. You may be referring to my man, Eric Musselman, which, by the way, swear to God, was not planning this. And by the way, I'm not taking my clothes off. I'm not taking my clothes off here, so don't be alarmed. But this is what I wore to the gym earlier today, which, yes, by the way, is, if you can't tell, I do work out. This shirt will show how long I've been in on Musselman. This is a Nevada shirt. The Must Bus. This was sent to me and my man Aaron Torres many years ago when Eric Musselman was at Nevada by the student section, because they saw that we saw it early that he's a hell of a coach. So, maybe some will say I have favoritism towards Jerome Tang and Eric Musselman, and you're probably right. Not to say that I think it has to be them. This probably does look like a Kansas State hoodie, and again, I've got a Must Bust Nevada shirt on. Let's see here. I'm not going to be able to get to all these comments that are coming in. Muss is 60. How many years does he have left? I mean, I don't know. Like, I have a different opinion on this than most. It's just age matters, but not. I don't think it matters the way a lot of people think it matters. Like, you don't want to go hire somebody that may potentially leading the program in a way that that like the guy currently is leading this country, if you know what I'm saying. That's not even a political shot, like, because I think people know what side of the aisle you could probably find me on, but like, you got to be mindful of a dude who may not even be able to like get up and go to work every day and like remember like the players' names. But like, who that is on the older side do you think that would happen with? Like, I know you want a young guy that could be here forever, but like that's rare this day and age. And like, I don't think 60 or even like 57 or 56 would be considered like, well, let's not do that because, they may die in a few years. Like, and keep in mind, Musselman's he's relatively still on the newer side of being a head coach. His first head coaching job was Nevada. I mean, Jerome Tang, what is Jerome Tang's age here? Because he's older than I know he's older than I realized. Jerome Tang is 57 years old. If I told you Jerome Tang was 46 years old, you'd believe me because of his energy, because of how he looks. He doesn't look old to me. But he's also a second-year head coach, which to me tells me he would have the hunger and drive that would match anybody's. Not only because, he'd crawl here, but also I think because this guy was an assistant coach at Baylor, helping Scott Drew build Baylor to what it is right now forever. And it took so long for him to even get an opportunity. He's as hungry as anybody. So, again, here I am talking about Jerome Tang, and I like him a lot. And I get why I don't think people dislike him. I don't think people are telling me, oh, he's terrible. I just think people don't think he should be considered because of how new he is to, to coaching, head coaching. And I get that, but I think I'd be willing to look past that, but I understand why others wouldn't. This says Crawford has tweeted out he's hearing indicators of a Scott Drew extension. I'd believe that. Wouldn't shock me at all. This says hard pass on Dusty May. This says you have zero idea that Muss wants the job. Oh, I haven't. I feel very firm in saying Muss would want the job. And he could be using it for leverage, but I think he wants the job. I can't like prove that to you. But here's the thing: Oklahoma State, he'll have that job if he wants it. So that doesn't mean Louisville should go hire him because Oklahoma State's about to get him. But like, if you don't feel like that Muss wants out of Arkansas, like you're not paying attention. Maybe some of that's been salvaged. I don't think he's going to leave Arkansas now to go take over, at like Arizona State or Minnesota. But like, if he could get Louisville or Oklahoma State, I think he would leave. But maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. Thank you all for, that did tune in here and, interact and whatnot. I'm still new to this, but I think I think all the comments that people are, sending in are here from whatever you're listening on, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. All right, I lied. One more coach I want to talk about that is not, I think, in play at all, but I do believe that I do actually like. I'll put it this way: Mark Few. I don't think Mark Few would leave Gonzaga. But if he was ever going to do it, wouldn't it be now? They don't have NIL resources that others are going to have. They're going to still be good at Gonzaga, but like, the level of them being, because even when they were really good, they just fade into, they just disappear once you get to January because of the league they play in. And they're in Spokane, Washington, which last I checked, they don't have a huge basketball presence there. I think I don't see him ever leaving Gonzaga because I've always felt like if he was going to do it, he would have already done it. But everything's different now. Things he can't control are probably going to limit the ceiling he could have at a place like Gonzaga, the portal, and NIL. So if he ever did want to move on, I think timing would be now or maybe next year or something. I don't think he's going to be the coach, but I think he didn't come up enough because it just seemed unrealistic. He's West Coast, all that kind of stuff. But I would have, if Louisville took a run at him and he was in play, but then turned him down, like I would think, well, I'm glad to know they at least looked that route because, Louisville can sell some things that they can provide that, is not at a level that Louisville's is, meaning like NIL money, like for example, the crowds that we, cried about because it's just sad to see what it's turned into as far as the people who go to games. Those crowds are not far off of like a max capacity game at Baylor. Like that matters, right? So Louisville has been down in a way I never thought they'd be. And I'm well aware there are many coaches that are comfortable where they are. They're not like going to abandon that to come to Louisville. And some coaches have probably never really had interest. They just wanted to use the job opening to get leverage. Like I'm not saying everybody would want to come to Louisville, but make no mistake about it. It's a great job despite what's happened recently. And for the first time since when? There's no pending NCAA situation at all. I mean, when Rick was hired, there was no pending, but I think we were already kind of in trouble for something at the end of Denny, probably something minor. But like Louisville, with resources, with NIL, big fan base, and, money they can pay a coach as far as a salary because they will always do that. They're Louisville, and they have to. Basketball's got to thrive here, right? We know that. So with all that, and again, no pending punishment coming, it's a very attractive job. Doesn't mean everybody would come, but like at the end of the day, if Scott Drew leaves Baylor, which I don't think he's going to, I think there'll be some folks that sit back and say, well, I kind of get it. He was at Baylor and this is Louisville. I think some would say, wow, I can't believe he left. It's a surprise that he would leave such a great situation. But it wouldn't be that he left Baylor for Louisville because, again, and I don't know what that voice was. That was probably really odd looking, but you know what I mean. So, again, I'll quit yapping. I'm just as bad as this as I am on the radio show as far as like knowing we need to get to break and I just don't shut the hell up. So, anyways, I will in fact end it now, but I do want to remind you live today at 3:00. We will be live on Sports Talk 790. And it's Coffee and Company. That's the name of the show. We are Fueled by Thornton's, and we'll talk more about all this, talk about the NCAA tournament. And tomorrow on Thursday, we are going to be live doing the show at the Sports and Social Club at 4th Street Live. So come out, hang out, have a beer, and we'll, enjoy everything that comes with the first day of the NCAA tournament and, have some fun. All right, so I'm going to hit end stream now and hope that means like, that this is over. But thank you all for listening and watching. Appreciate you.